Hello. Today I'm going to be talking about the halo and horn effect. I should mention that it does often go by different names. In particular, it's sometimes just generally called the halo effect, or the horn part might also be called the horns effect or the devil effect. But either way, it was first discovered in 1907, although the term would not be coined until 1920. That is the halo effect term. And what exactly is the halo and horn effect? Well, in general, it's the idea that one's general impression of somebody, whether that's positive or negative, is going to affect how they see that person, whether that be their traits or how they interact with that person, things like that in the future, even if it's not necessarily correlated with those past experiences. And another alternate definition that's given in a paper by Chris Westbury and Daniel King is presumably independent human ratings are correlated. Now, how exactly does the halo and horns effect happen? Well, it's through the process of what Susan Fried calls selective distortion, which is the process of adapting certain information to fit certain preconceived biases. And other more specific methods are given in that same paper by Westbury and King, which includes the general impression interpretation. This is the idea that I've already sort of mentioned, which is that one's general impression of somebody is going to color how they see them in the future. And there's also the salient dimension interpretation. This is the idea that one's perception of how one trait correlates to another is going to affect how they see a certain person based off of one of the traits. For example, I might see somebody is knowledgeable and assume that they must be kind because I assume that those traits are correlated. And then finally, there's the inadequate discrimination interpretation. And this is the idea that one can't, or at least doesn't fully separate the ideas of two separate things in their mind. For example, introvertedness versus shyness. I might assume that an introvert is shy because they are very, very similar ideas, and I might not fully think through the differences before automatically assuming. Now, this paper in particular was looking at a somewhat alternate look into things, in particular looking at specific instances of how it worked, and they were researching the correlation between how often words and particular traits are used in the similar contexts and how people perceive that those traits are correlated in people. And they did end up finding a correlation between these two ideas, although they also found a correlation between how similar people believe certain traits are in meaning and how correlated they believe those traits are in people. So it was slightly inconclusive. Now, how does this connect to conflict? Well, some examples from my own life. I would say that personally, I have felt the horn effect in myself in considering certain politicians, for example, where they're politicians that I don't like, but I might automatically assume that they're making bad decisions because I don't like them. Now, and the way I felt it is through one of my coworkers who has possibly gotten an opinion of me based off of legitimate mistakes, but often assumes that I'm doing things wrong or don't know how to do things, despite the fact that oftentimes I do. And I think in general, it has this particular, the horn effect has the possibility of continuing on conflicts where one bad conflict in the past might alter one's assumptions of another person, and in the future they're going to assume something which is going to cause another conflict, and it's just going to cause things to snowball and continue. Yeah. Thank you.